morning, and she says that I think this appeal shows them for what they are really, and that she's far too busy ensuring that Sophie's never forgotten to give it any more consideration.
And we understand that Lancashire Police are also unhappy, that they feel the sentences passed for what happened in this park last August were fair. In a statement they told us they have been notified of the decision to appeal against those sentences, but that the case now lies with the Court of Appeal.
Well, this is the Sophie Lancaster campaign MySpace site. And
this the focus now for Sophie's family and friends, a campaign in her name which is gathering momentum by the day.
I think people see her as a turning point, you know, see what happened, what shocking tragedy happened with Sophie. They see themselves, they see their daughters, their granddaughters, their sisters, their girlfriends, and they're saying, you know, enough's enough.
3 other teenagers jailed for attacking Sophie's boyfriend Robert Maltby are also trying to appeal against their sentences. All the appeals will now be considered by a senior High Court judge who'll decide if there's a case to be heard. Laurie Yates, North West Tonight, Bacup.
Yes, an extremely highly charged atmosphere in court, and you can understand why. Every now and again a court case comes along that just causes you to despair when you hear what has actually gone on, and this is one of them. Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were attacked as they walked through Stubberley Park in August last year, attacked simply because of the way they looked. They dressed as goths. First of all, Robert was attacked by a group of 5s, acting like a pack of wild animals in an attack that was merciless and savage. Then 2 of them turned their attentions on Sophie. The 2 that turned their attentions on Sophie was 16-year-old Ryan Herbert, who pleaded guilty to her murder. He was sentenced today to 16 years 3 months. And then 15-year-old Brendan Harris. He was found guilty of her murder after a trial. Today he was sentenced to 18 years. The court heard that they'd kicked Sophie like a football. She'd been stamped on and punched, and she died 2 weeks later from those injuries.
Now, Sophie's family were in court today for that sentencing. It must have been very difficult for them.
Absolutely. Sylvia Lancaster, Sophie's mum, has been in court again. She's acted with great dignity throughout all of this. She's previously said that her daughter's last few moments on earth must have been like a living hell. Adam Lancaster, Sophie's brother, was also here in court. After sentencing, he read out this statement.
Although the sentences seem fitting and appropriate, no sentence is long enough to compensate for the loss of Sophie.
In terms of what's happened, though, do you feel justice has been done?
It'll never be done, will it? You know, can't bring her back, unfortunately.
It's often possible to point to something which actually sparked off the violence. This case had no such spark. It simply seemed to be a matter of attacking 2 people who were different, and I think what particularly sickened me about it was the degree of rejoicing afterwards.
Now, what about the 3 boys who attacked Sophie's boyfriend Rob?
Yes, for the first time an order banning their identification has now been lifted, so we can tell you who they are. They were brothers Joseph Hume, who's 17, from Whitworth, and his brother Daniel Hume, 16. They were both jailed for 5 years for their part in the attack on Robert Maltby. The third defendant, Daniel Mannett, who was 17, from Bacup, he was sentenced to 4 years, 4 months. We actually heard a short statement from Rob read out in court today, in which he said that he now finds the world a terrifying place, and he says that he feels guilty about what has happened to Sophie, and in some ways feels responsible.
And Peter, the judge made some pretty damning comments as well, didn't he?
Absolutely. His Honour Judge Anthony Russell QC said that at least wild animals, when they hunt as a pack, have a legitimate reason for doing so, to obtain food. You, he said, had none. He went on to say that your behaviour on this night degrades humanity itself. He criticised their swaggering manner in court and said that it was feral thuggery of the worst kind, carried out by cowards of the worst kind. He also said that it was definitely a hate crime, and that pleased many of the campaigners who gathered outside the court.
delighted that the judge actually recognised that this was a hate crime, and has pointed out that judges have provision with magistrates to use the hate as an aggravated factor when sentencing.
Sophie Lancaster's name will live on in the hearts of goths. She will live on in the hearts of right-minded people.
Well, they are the views of some of the campaigners who gathered outside Preston Crown Court today. From here is back to the studio.
When they say life, that's what they mean, is life. Unfortunately, the judicial system doesn't work like that, and the judge actually handed down sentences the harshest that he possibly could, basically.
You work with young people, you are a youth worker.
Yes.
Do you understand how something like this could have happened?
No. There's absolutely no justification for what happened that night.
What do you put down then to what happened?
Well, I think it's quite a complex issue. You know, you've got the alcohol, the fact that they were drinking lots of alcohol. You know, drugs have never been mentioned, but that's, you know, another aspect. And it's about that young people have no moral conscience, basically. And the use of violence is escalating.
And what do you think, though, is producing that sort of result in young people?
I think actually we need to look at the education system. And we need to look at it from an earlier age. You know, if young people show any signs of antisocial behaviour, which, you know, as we are aware, they're doing at a younger age, you know, we need to be able to intervene at that stage.
Sophie in court described as a warm, happy, caring woman. How do you remember her?
That's exactly what she was. And she was intelligent, she was funny, and she was just lovely. And she didn't deserve what happened to her.
Do you think that there should be new legislation in a way to sort of try and counter what happened to your daughter? I think this idea of hate crime is something that you've been looking into as well, because in the senselessness of what happened, I mean, she was attacked for the way she was dressed.
Yeah, you can't believe it, can you, really? And I think it was the fact that that they were dressed the way that they were, and they were in a gang of young people who were dressed differently. So obviously they were singled out. And what we want to try and do is widen the hate crime bill to include young people from different subcultures, or dressed differently, if you will. But what happened yesterday in court actually was really interesting, because what the judge did, he used his own discretion and used the hate crime legislation to sentence those young people to a stiffer sentence. So the hate crime was actually used in Sophie's sentence.